Hey guys, it's Puddinfoot here. I'm just gonna go over real quick how to solo Maraudon Princess runs. I've had a few people ask me how exactly, I go through these runs. So I decided to kind of make a video step by step showing how to do it. Right here, we're right at the entrance of Maraudon in the Valley of Spears. So we're gonna open this big door and walk right in. Basically, this is a kind of solo gold farming method that you can do if you're usually like a healer class. Anyone can do this, but it works really well as a healer class because it's pretty easy to do. Um, as you know, we typically aren't very good at doing things like you know, ZF AoE runs or anything like that. But we're just gonna come right down and go through this hallway. We're headed towards the entrance to the falls area. I believe in retail they call it Earth Song Falls, but that is primarily the area that we're going to be in. And I got a little timer right up here. We're gonna see exactly how long it takes. I think it takes about 20 minutes for a druid. It'll be a lot faster for like priests, shaman. We'll be able to get this done a lot faster. But we'll go ahead and start the timer. I will say that also, if you're an herbalist or a miner, you can make a lot of extra money here through the nodes. You get a lot of blind weed here, which is good for the superior mana potions. You get a lot of mithril ore, which I believe a lot of engineers use to make their grenades for like PvP and some other things. So right here I'm gonna grab. There's usually always one blind weed in this little first area, so I'm just gonna grab the first one here. And you'll usually get 2 or 3 blind weed from each node, and there's usually about 3 to 4 in each run. So that is super super useful. Um, they sell 30 to 50 silver a pop. Over there you can see the mithril node. I don't have any use for that because I'm actually alchemy as my secondary. And you can see I don't really need to stealth for any of this. I obviously have the option to if necessary, but the mobs around here are like 47, high of like 48. So typically you can run kind of right past them and they won't bother you. You do have to be a little careful. You kind of want to try and hug the walls and stay a little ways away from them if you can. Um, but, usually like I can get pretty close to these guys without pulling them, so no fear there. I am somewhat well geared, so that does increase the speed of these quite a bit. That being said, I've been doing these since I hit level 60 on this character, so I don't think your gear is really a factor. It just kind of speeds things up, makes each run a little more, um, just like a little more quick, a little more easy to do. Obviously better gear means more mana, which means going out of mana a lot less often, which can sometimes be a problem on some of these bosses. Uh, so we're coming right down here. The first boss we're going to do is Tinkerer. He's one of the 2 bosses that we can do. Um, this boss I actually find to be a little bit harder than Princess, truth be told. Um, Princess sometimes comes down to luck, whereas this guy he hits really hard. You'll see in a second he does ranged attacks for I think like 300 to 400 damage sometimes. Um, but there's not a lot to it. We just want to stay kind of ranged from him and just blast him down. If you're, a priest, you'll be using like I guess smite and whatever else. Keep your Shadow Word Pain up for druids. I just like to keep Moonfire on him and then blast him with Starfire. I am Moonkin, but again, I have done this in pretty much every spec you can do this as, except for like Pure Feral. Um, so right here, every couple of seconds he does this Goblin Dragon Gun, and that's actually super useful because while he's using Goblin Dragon Gun, he actually will not auto attack you, so you get some freedom from his damage. And you can see he's kind of chunking me kind of hard here. I'm at a little under half health right now. So every once in a while I'll just throw like I'll throw like a rejuve on myself just to keep myself from getting too low, because he can actually burst you down pretty fast sometimes. It's a little scary. But again, that Goblin Dragon gun, we really love to see that, because as soon as he starts doing that, it means I have, like 4 or 5 seconds of just not having to worry about it at all. And that's the first boss down. As you can see from DBM, he takes a little under a minute and 10 seconds, depending on your speed. I've been in here for 4 minutes total so far, and just off of that, I've made a little over 2.5 gold, plus, whatever the 5 blind weed I've picked up and the ghost mushroom. So, I mean, it's small increments, but you do, 4 or 5 of these runs in an hour, and it all really adds up. And again, we're just gonna slip right on past all of the enemies here. So fun fact about these enemies, they are all of them except for the worms, and the dinosaurs are immune to nature damage. So that's why you don't see me like doing mass pulls and just like hurricane everything down. They're immune to nature damage. That actually wasn't a thing on private servers. So a lot of videos you'll look at like doing Mara solos as a druid, they'll tell you, oh, you just use what's it called? Sorry. Yeah, insect swarm. They'll say, oh, you just use insect swarm and moonfire and you kite and you can kill everything. Well, that's actually not true. Again, they're all totally immune. Even thorns doesn't do damage to them. So I skip the ads here. They mostly just drop like trash grays, which I mean normally would be a good source of money, but unfortunately, the difficulty of trying to kill them is a bit of a pain. So we're just kind of pathing this way down the bridge towards the princess here. Princess has a very interesting strategy. You pretty much just want to dite her. You pretty much just want to dot her and then kite her around this big kind of stone platform that she's on. I will say one thing that really helps to have is the minor speed increase on your boots. It's not 100% necessary. I have done this without it, but it does. It helps you stay ahead of her and really takes a lot of the stress off of kiting her. It really helps a lot to just kind of in those heartbeat moments where you think maybe I'm gonna get caught here. It saves you from that. So I like to start with a fat starfire, and then hit her with the moonfire, and then I'll just kite her around. This big rock right here really is your saving grace. It's gonna allow you to kind of line of sight her for a little bit if need to like stop and cast a hard cast a heal. But right here, I'm just running from her. Every few seconds, as long as you're like out of melee range, she'll cast this boulder thing at you, and the boulder stuns you for a few seconds, which allows her to catch up. And then she also has repulsive gaze, which is a fear, and if that fear hits you, it really sucks. So right here, you can see I kind of goofed there. Basically, the way that her auto attacks work is Princess actually stores auto attacks as she's running. So what happens is, if she catches up to you, then she hits you with like 4 or 5 auto attacks at a time, and it can really deal a lot of damage and really surprise you. So, that was a ton of damage that I took right there. I went into bear form to try and mitigate some of it, and it still chunked me for a decent amount. So again, I'm just trying to stay away from her auto attacks. And, if I miss a boulder, that's really great. If not, then, oh well. Typically, I can get far enough away that the boulder won't catch me. Now, what I like to do is, after every couple of boulders, she starts to get kind of progressively closer and closer. So what I'll do is I'll shift into bear form, and of course, if you are a mage, if you're a priest, you can pop a power word shield on yourself. But I'll swap into bear form, and then I will kind of trick her into doing that dust cloud. The dust cloud, pretty iconic. She basically stands there and casts the dust cloud around her. It does AoE and knockback. It really hurts if you stand in it. Obviously, that's not our goal. Our goal is during the dust cloud to kind of get as much range as possible. And you can see right here, I'm kind of kiting her back and forth around this rock. The AI can't figure out which way to go to get to me, so I can just kind of trick her into running back and forth, and that allows me to kind of regenerate some mana. That will be very useful for people who aren't super well geared, who don't have, a lot of mana or a lot of mana regen. They'll want to be doing that little back and forth dance quite a bit so that they can make sure that they are, you know, good on mana. Because obviously I want to have mana to do damage to her, but if I go out of mana, then I also lose my defensive options. I don't have the ability to swap into bear form. Um, or even if I'm really panicking, I can swap into cat and sprint away. So right here, once again, I'm going to trick her into going into Dustfield, and then kind of step out, get some distance. This is a good time to Starfire if you have like a Moonglow effect up. Because I don't need to be max distance from her at all times. I just need to be like as close to max distance as I can. Pop an Innervate here. Obviously, Innervate is exclusive to Druids. If you're a priest, then you can bring some mana potions. I promise you, you'll make back the money you spend on mana potions after a couple runs. Once again, get her to go into Dustfield. And then just keep kiting out just like this. It's a little slow going, especially if you don't deal a ton of damage. It kind of is what it is. Druids are actually the slowest at this because their dots don't deal as much damage. But that actually kind of works out in our favor. Basically, you have the dungeon timer where, if you reset a dungeon too many times within an hour, then you get locked out. That will pretty much never happen to a druid here. I can do this as many times as I want without ever having to worry about the lockout, because I'm just never going to complete it fast enough that resetting it is going to lock me out. It's a kind of a sad truth to it, but I mean, that is, it is what it is. So once again, we're just kiting her around the room. What I have kind of noticed with her is if you stay kind of more towards her right, then you get more range on her. I don't know if it's because she starts attacking with her left hand, but like once you kind of move towards the left side of her body, she gains a little bit of that phantom range. Of course, it doesn't help that I'm a druid, and she's got, I've got an extra large hitbox on top of all that. But again, just kind of kiting her out. I like to refresh my Moonfire just before it drops off, just so that she's always like constantly taking damage. And I don't just spam Moonfire. I really want to like get every tick out of it that I can. That's the best way to do it, to get as much mana out of each Moonfire as I can. And again, if I have the time, I'll drop a Starfire on her. If I think I can get it off without her catching me. You never want to be in a position where she can hit you with a melee attack and you don't have a defensive ready. So you can see right there, the entire run took about 12 minutes. I got an Eye of Theredras and a Blackstone Ring. These items in particular are not super worth a lot of money. However, if you want to bring in like a rogue or a hunter who's like, trying to level up, trying to get their Blackstone Ring, you can actually sell these for like a decent profit to people who are trying to get it. I've seen people selling it for like 10 or 15 gold. And as you can see, these runs were pretty easy, so nothing too difficult. In terms of resetting this, typically what I'll do is I'll use my alt account, and what you do is you have your alt parked outside of the dungeon or pretty much anywhere in the world, and they're the actual party leader. And then what you would do is you would go offline, and then kind of tab over to that other character, and as soon as it shows offline, your character's offline, you use your alt to reset the dungeon, and that will actually put you back at the front of the dungeon, and everything will have respawned. It's essentially a fresh dungeon. That being said, if you don't have an alt account, you can always ask somebody, hey, can you reset this dungeon for me? The only other way really to get out of here and reset is to die. And it's a huge pain in the ass. It's a long walk back. You can't, if you do die, you can't walk into this area. In fact, let me just show you guys that real quick. Um, just in case you do end up dying, it does take a little bit of practice to learn to kite the princess. Um, but I'll just go ahead and take an L real quick and kind of show you what I mean. Unfortunately, you guys don't get any kind of speed ups or cuts or anything like that because I don't know how to edit videos. So you'll just deal with my very rudimentary recording. Yeah, like I said, it's a really long walk back. It's not fun. I have died to Princess before. Many times you can get very unlucky. I didn't really cover it during the actual run, but she has a fear ability, petrifying gaze or something like that. I don't know what it's called because I didn't get hit by it this time. But it essentially it's a fear that she uses on you when she's within melee range of you. Um, that fear can really mess you up, especially if it catches you like out of your defensive form. Um, obviously, if you're undead, then you don't have to worry about it. But us druids, we do have to worry about it. It's very rare that it does hit. You'll resist it like 75% of the time, but that 25% that you don't resist it, it can really be a run killer. Just depending completely on RNG. I've had fears where I've run to the other end of the room and not even been close to her once I was able to move again. I've had fears where I literally just sat on top of her while she beat the hell out of me. So, it really it can go either way. Um, the fear itself though, it usually lasts like 4 or 5 seconds, so it's not the end of the world to be feared, but you do have to kind of look towards playing more defensively if you do get feared. Um, the goblin, the tinkerer that we killed first, he actually also has a fear, but he only uses it in melee range. So as long as you're not in melee range, you won't be feared, which is why you don't see me just like going into bear form and tanking him out or anything like that, because that fear on the tinkerer will get you killed. He will almost assuredly fear you right into a pack full of mobs. The mobs, they deal a lot of damage. They're hard to deal with. Um, on top of the 300 or 400 you're taking from each one of his hits, it's really just not worth it to be in melee range of Tinkerer ever. Obviously, you can't control getting within melee range of Princess, so you are a little more vulnerable to her fear, but you have the whole room to play around with. There's really nothing you have to worry about pulling within her room. Um, so this is what I was talking about earlier, how you can't kind of go back into the Earthsong Falls area if you die. Um, to get in there, you have to open the portal, and you can't open the portal while you're dead. So what you actually have to do is go through the crystal side. I prefer the left because it's a bit of an easier path, but you have to go through the crystal side and go into that entrance to resurrect, and then come back out and run back to the portal and go back in that way. Um, and it's just a huge pain in the ass, so you really want to try not to die. I would even go so far as to say if you think you're going to die against Princess, just jump off into the water, like below, and just reset the whole fight. Um, because you will save more time resetting the fight and just running back than you will trying to like get back to the graveyard or get back from the graveyard and run all this way. It really is like it's a long process. And again, that's why I don't recommend resetting the dungeon by dying, because it's going to take 1,000 years for you to get back and reset that way, and it's just really at that point it's a lot less worthwhile, in terms of time spent versus gold made. Um, but that was just one run. I'm gonna hearth real quick and sell this stuff. We'll see how much I make. I'm at 189.1 right now. So if I just sell the eye, the tiara and the rifle, I went from 181 to 194. So, you know, I'm not a math wizard, but you guys can figure that out. The point that I'm trying to make is that it's really good money if you can do it very efficiently. Um, and it's really not difficult at all. I mean, like I said, I was doing this almost as soon as I hit level 60. It's how I was able to afford my epic mount. I've done probably 1,000 runs of this. Um, and that particular run that you just saw was actually really unlucky. I got some really cheap items. What you're really looking for, especially from Princess, is like the scepter, which is 4.5 gold, the dagger, which is 3.5 gold. Um, you know, this would be a godsend. Like I said, I've done almost 1,000 runs and haven't seen this, but this Blade of Eternal Darkness, I feel like if you got one of these, you could hold on to it pretty much through the whole game. Chance on landing a damaging spell to deal 100 shadow damage and restore 100 mana to you. For classes like Druid, like Shadow Priest, like Elemental Shaman, for example, that amount of mana restoration on damaging spells would be absolutely huge. You know, getting 100 mana back each time you cast a spell, that would be super useful. Tinkerer, the rifle is pretty good money. The sword is, you know, 3.2 gold. That's really good. The shield's 2.2 gold, so you definitely don't want to skip the Tinkerer. His items are worth a lot of money, and he happens to drop typically a lot of Mage Weave cloth. I mean, I've probably gotten hundreds of Mage Weave cloth off of this guy. But yeah, you know, I went from 181 to 194 just from that one little clear, and like I said, the items were not even very great. And then I have these 5 blindweed to sell and the ghost mushroom. The blindweed sell for about 30 to 50 silver a piece. The ghost mushrooms sell anywhere from 80 silver to a gold a piece, so that's extra money right there. Like I said, this can be a very lucrative farming opportunity, and it's very easy, very simple to do. Anybody can do this as long as you have a dot and the ability to kite or like some kind of defensive ability. Um, Very, very simple. But anyway, that's my whole time. I hope this works out for you guys really well. You know, let me know how it goes for you. Hopefully, some of you guys can start affording your epic mounts, maybe some of those flasks and elixirs and whatnot. But anyway, thanks for watching.